There comes a moment in a woman's life when she looks around and realizes that the love she has been searching for everywhere in everyone has left her empty. She has given her heart to the world, only to find it returned to her in pieces. And in that silence, in that loneliness, Allah begins to teach her a truth she could never learn in comfort, that the absence of love from people is not the absence of love itself. That sometimes Allah withholds the temporary so she can rediscover the eternal. And in that rediscovery, she becomes stronger, softer, deeper, because a woman who learns to take her love from the source becomes unshakable. Love from creation is limited. Love from the Creator is limitless. This truth is one of the most profound lessons a person can learn, especially a woman who feels unseen, unheard, or unloved. Human beings, by nature, are imperfect vessels. Their love fluctuates with mood, circumstance, and personal capacity. Sometimes they love deeply but inconsistently. Sometimes they love sincerely but cannot sustain it. And sometimes they do not love at all, not because the woman is unworthy, but because the human heart itself is fragile and often distracted. When a woman places all her emotional weight on these fragile vessels, she sets herself up for disappointment because she is asking creation to give what only the Creator can provide. There is a reason why even the most affectionate relationships can still leave a person feeling empty at times. A mother's love, a spouse's love, a friend's love. They are real, meaningful, and beautiful, but they come with limits. They cannot heal every wound, understand every silence, carry every burden, or fill every void. The human heart was created with a space that only divine love can satisfy. When a woman tries to fill that space with people, she ends up feeling drained, abandoned, or incomplete because she is trying to extract the infinite from the finite. But Allah's love is not limited by capacity, mood, or imperfection. His love is constant, steady, unconditional in a way no human being can offer. He loves you even when you are broken, even when you feel lost, even when you do not love yourself. He loves with a purity no disappointment can tarnish, with a mercy no human heart can replicate. When Allah loves you, He loves you in every moment, through every phase, in every weakness, and beyond every mistake. This love does not decrease when you fall or fade when others pull away. It is a love rooted not in who you are to the world, but in who you are to the one who created your soul. When a woman realizes this, her entire inner world shifts. She stops chasing the approval of people who do not see her worth. She stops tying her happiness to the presence or absence of someone in her life. She stops begging for a place in the hearts of people who only know how to love in fragments. She begins to understand that human love is meant to complement her life, not sustain it. It can uplift her, but it cannot define her. It can support her, but it cannot complete her. And something powerful happens when she redirects her heart toward Allah. She becomes less desperate for validation and more anchored in peace. She becomes less reactive to people's inconsistencies and more responsive to Allah's constancy. She discovers a love that does not run out, does not disappoint, does not shift with time. A love that stays even when everyone else leaves. A love that holds her even when the world breaks her. A love that remains even when she feels she has nothing left to give. Your worth is not reduced by someone's inability to value you. This is a truth many women struggle to internalize, especially when someone they trusted, loved, or cared for fails to recognize their depth. Human beings often project their own wounds, insecurities, and limitations onto others. When someone cannot see your value, it is not always because you lack something. More often, it is because they lack the clarity, maturity, or emotional capacity to appreciate what stands before. Many women fall into the trap of believing that if someone treats them as replaceable, it must mean they are. But a person's treatment of you reflects who they are, not who you are. People who cannot see light will call even the brightest star dim. People who cannot feel deeply will call even the purest heart too much. A woman's worth is not a fluctuating measurement tied to the way others behave. Worth is woven into her soul by Allah long before any human opinion touches her life. It is embedded in her creation, in the way she was formed with purpose, dignity, and honor. When someone dismisses her, belittles her, or fails to choose her, they are not diminishing her value. They are merely revealing their inability to handle what is rare. Only someone who understands gems can value a diamond. Only someone with emotional depth can recognize emotional depth. Only someone with sincerity can appreciate sincerity. When a woman measures her worth by the wrong scale, by people who are spiritually or emotionally incapable, she will always feel small, even while being extraordinary. Sometimes people cannot value you because they are too focused on themselves. They may be consumed by their own struggles, desires, or priorities. They may not have learned how to love in a healthy, consistent way. They may see relationships as transactions rather than trusts. They may chase superficial qualities and overlook the qualities of the heart. None of these circumstances reflect your worth. They merely reflect the limitations of the person standing in front of you. You cannot seek depth from someone living on the surface. You cannot expect nourishment from someone who is empty inside. You cannot expect recognition from someone who has never recognized their own flaws. A woman often blames herself when someone cannot love her properly. She questions her beauty, her kindness, her sacrifices. She wonders what more she should have done. But she rarely considers the possibility that the other person simply lacked the capacity. You can pour oceans into someone and they will still feel thirsty if their soul is cracked. You can give endlessly and they will still leave if they do not know how to receive. Your worth does not decrease because they walked away. It simply means Allah is protecting you from being tied to someone who cannot honor what He created with such intention. When a woman separates her identity from people's opinions, she becomes lighter. She stops shrinking herself to fit into small hearts. She stops apologizing for her depth, her sincerity, her softness. She understands that value is not proven by being chosen. It is proven by being true to who she is, regardless of who fails to see it. Loneliness is often Allah's invitation to return. A woman may experience moments in life where the silence around her feels heavier than any noise she has ever known. The absence of companionship, affection, or emotional support can feel like an ache that settles deep within the chest. She may look at her journey and wonder why people drift away, why relationships fade, or why the hearts she depended on no longer reach for her. What she doesn't realize is that loneliness is not always a punishment. Sometimes it is a gentle pull from Allah, drawing her away from what distracts her and back toward what sustains her. When the world becomes quiet, the soul finally has space to hear what it has long ignored. Allah removes people, comforts, and attachments not to break her, but to unveil something she cannot see while surrounded by noise. The human heart, when constantly occupied with others, becomes too full to notice the one who created it. But when those attachments loosen, when the voices fade, and when the companionship disappears, the heart becomes aware of a deeper emptiness, a space meant to be filled with remembrance, trust, and nearness to Allah. Loneliness becomes a spiritual doorway, a moment where she is stripped of everything temporary so she can reconnect with the one who is permanent. The soul that feels isolated from creation often finds itself closer to its creator. Many women mistake this phase for abandonment. They think they are alone because they are unworthy, unseen, or forgotten. But the truth is that some forms of loneliness are divine protection. Allah removes certain people because their presence would hinder her growth. He closes certain doors because they lead to heartbreak disguised as comfort. He allows certain distances because attachment to them would distance her from him. When a woman interprets loneliness through a spiritual lens, she realizes it is not emptiness, it is preparation. Allah isolates the heart to refine it, strengthen it, and reshape it into something capable of receiving a higher form of peace. In moments of loneliness, a woman is forced to confront the parts of herself she once ignored. She begins to reflect, to question, to analyze the choices she has made and the directions she has taken. This introspection is not accidental, it is guided. Allah uses solitude to awaken her, to show her what she could not see while leaning on others. He teaches her resilience by removing reliance. He teaches her contentment by withholding attachment. He teaches her sincerity by placing her in situations where no one can validate her except him. Loneliness becomes a teacher, a purifier, a silent companion leading her back to her true source of strength. When a woman begins to respond to loneliness with remembrance instead of despair, she discovers that she was never truly alone. She starts to find comfort in prayer, in Quran, in quiet conversations with Allah that she had once replaced with conversations with people. She starts to feel seen in ways human eyes could never see her. She starts to feel held in ways human hands could never hold her. She starts to experience a closeness that does not depend on proximity, attention, or presence. Through her loneliness, she begins to feel the nearness of Allah in every breath, every tear, every moment of stillness. What breaks you can become the doorway to spiritual awakening. A woman often experiences moments in life where her heart feels shattered beyond repair, betrayal, loss, disappointment, or the collapse of a relationship she believed would last. In those moments, she looks at herself and sees only fragments. She wonders why her story unfolded this way, why certain people were allowed into her life only to hurt her, why her trust became the very thing used against her. The pain feels unjust, overwhelming, and deeply personal. But within that pain lies a truth that becomes clear only when she stops resisting it. Sometimes Allah breaks the heart to rebuild the soul, to redirect her path, to lift her to a place she could never reach without being shaken awake. Breaking is not always destruction. Sometimes breaking is transformation. A seed must split before it grows. A shell must crack before the bird can fly. A heart must experience its own limitations before it can surrender fully to the one who is limitless. When a woman is broken, the illusions she once relied on begin to fall away, illusions of control, of permanence, of relying on people more than Allah. She begins to realize that the things she held on to so tightly were never meant to carry the weight of her happiness. The pain dismantles the false foundations she built her life on, forcing her to seek something deeper, something real, something divine. Many women try to escape their pain, to numb it, to outrun it, believing that healing means pretending the wound never existed. But pain is not the enemy. Pain is a messenger. It exposes what needs to be healed, what needs to be released, what needs to be understood. It reveals where she has misplaced her dependency, where she has tied her worth, where she has allowed the world to define her. In this way, pain becomes a doorway, an entry point to reflection, humility, and genuine closeness to Allah. Instead of closing her off from faith, the pain opens her heart wider than before. A woman who experiences deep hurt often becomes more aware of her inner landscape. She starts to see the fragility of her attachments, the temporary nature of the world, and the limits of human love. These realizations, though painful, are gifts. They guide her toward a deeper spirituality that cannot be accessed through ease alone. Hardship teaches patience in a way comfort never can. Loss teaches reliance in a way abundance never will. Heartbreak teaches surrender in a way stability rarely does. Through the cracks in her heart, she begins to see light she never saw before. During this process, she may feel as though everything is falling apart, but in reality, something else is falling into place. She becomes kinder, more understanding, more connected to her own soul. She learns to evaluate relationships differently, no longer chasing validation, but seeking sincerity. She becomes more attuned to her intuition, more aware of her emotional boundaries, and more appreciative of the inner peace she once took for granted. What once seemed like punishment begins to look like protection, and what once felt like loss begins to reveal itself as guidance. As she moves through the breaking, something inside her awakens. A new depth of faith emerges, a new clarity, a new strength. She realizes she can survive what she thought would destroy her. She recognizes that pain did not come to diminish her, but to reshape her into someone wiser, softer, braver, and closer to Allah than she has ever been. Healing begins when you choose Allah over the world's approval. A woman often spends years trying to fit into expectations that were never designed to nourish her soul. She may bend her personality, silence her needs, or shrink her voice just to keep certain people comfortable. She learns early that being accepted feels safer than being authentic, and she begins to shape her life around the fear of disappointing others. This constant pressure slowly erodes her inner peace, leaving her exhausted, conflicted, and disconnected from her true self. But healing begins the moment she realizes that no amount of human approval can compensate for the emptiness created by distancing herself from Allah. When she stops performing for the world and starts returning to the one who created her, she begins to experience a freedom she never knew she was missing. A woman's heart is naturally drawn to seek validation, love, and belonging. But when these needs are directed toward people instead of Allah, she becomes vulnerable to their inconsistency. Human approval is unstable. It changes with trends, moods, interests, and circumstances. One day they applaud her, and the next day they criticize her. One moment they support her, and the next they withdraw. When she bases her identity on this shifting foundation, she lives in constant anxiety, afraid of losing acceptance, afraid of being judged, afraid of disappointing someone who may not even care deeply for her. Choosing Allah over people allows her to step out of this emotional prison. When a woman turns toward Allah, she begins to see herself differently. She judges her worth not by how loudly the world praises her, but by how sincerely she connects to her Creator. She starts to replace the fear of people with the awareness that Allah is closer to her than any human could ever be. She starts to notice how peaceful her heart feels when she makes decisions rooted in faith rather than fear. She begins to understand that her purpose was never to please creation, but to fulfill the potential Allah placed within her. Healing unfolds naturally when her soul aligns with its true direction. This shift does not require dramatic changes. It begins with small, sincere steps. A prayer whispered in the quiet of night, a moment of reflection instead of reaction, a choice to walk away from what harms her spiritually, even if others do not understand, a commitment to protect her peace, even if it means disappointing those who expect her to sacrifice herself for their convenience. As she prioritizes Allah, her boundaries strengthen, her clarity deepens, and her emotional wounds start to close. She no longer chases the approval of people who do not value her. She no longer compromises her dignity for temporary acceptance. She begins to honor her heart in a way she never allowed herself to before. With time, she discovers that choosing Allah brings a form of love that does not demand perfection, a form of acceptance that does not require performance, and a form of security that no human relationship can match. She feels guided in moments of uncertainty, comforted in moments of pain, and understood in moments where no one else can reach her. The heaviness she once carried starts to lift, replaced by a sense of inner steadiness. She realizes that healing was never about fixing everything around her. It was about realigning everything within her.